Welcome, Nikki.
Hi. Hi. Thanks for having me, MacKenzie. I'm very excited to be here.
I am very excited to have you. And as we were saying before we got started, like, where were you 7 years ago when I really, really needed you? But I am so excited to be talking with you today because I think that this topic is really applicable to a lot of women. And we're going to get into that, of course. We're talking about finances, we're talking about how to be prepared for divorce with your finances and like how to go about all of that. And even though not all of my audience is divorced or going to be divorced, I think we all know someone who is or is going to at some point. And so being able to kind of like have these resources in your back pocket and just things that you've thought about, I think are really helpful. But before we dive in there, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, sure. Well, again, thanks for having me. I am Nikki Tucker. So I serve women as a speaker, as a blogger, as a personal financial strategist. And I teach women how to protect their financial security and help them to understand that doing simple things like being more organized, transparent, and intentional with their finances is beneficial, whether they are partnered or not. So I have been in the financial space for over 20 years,
Wow.
both on the commercial and personal side of things. But what's unique about me is I have a particular lens that maybe not all financial professionals do because I've seen both sides. And what I can tell you is that it doesn't matter if someone's coming from wealth or they've accumulated a lot of wealth or they're still trying to figure out what wealth is. They all have one thing in common. They're trying to protect and preserve whatever they do have in some way. So I love working with women, female breadwinners in particular, and helping them get through major transitions like divorce.
Yeah. Well, and that's a big one because you can want to protect your wealth or lack thereof all you can, but as I have personally experienced, divorce is a very expensive thing, more expensive for some people than others, myself being one of those people that it's honestly buried me. And so and 7 years later is still an ongoing issue because we're still in and out of court and still having to pay those retainer fees to attorneys and all of that kind of thing. So obviously, I'm in over my head now. But if you could have told me as like a, stay-at-home mom with a little bit of side income that was walking away from my marriage 7 years ago, like what would you have said to get me headed in the right direction?
Yeah. So if at that time we met and you said, Nikki, I think I want to get a divorce. One of the first things that I like to ask my clients is, what's your intention behind your divorce process? What type of divorce do you want to have? Some people are focused on having a amicable, stress-free divorce, and some want to fight it out about everything. And I'm
And
not the
some don't
judge
have
to,
the choice.
and some don't have the choice.
Yeah.
Exactly. Some don't have the choice.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the judge of either side, but I like to work with people whose intention, even though again they may not have control over the entire process, is to have a more amicable divorce if possible, right? And so just putting that out there in the universe, I think is important to say, this is what I want it to look like. Even if it doesn't go that way, my intention is to be reasonable, to be transparent, and just help get through the process as easily as I can for myself and my soon to be ex. And then for what you stated in particular, and we're thinking about this from a high insight perspective. And one of the things that I caution women about it in general, but also if you're female breadwinner or if you are stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home wife, is having some sort of financial independence. Now, when you're at the stage where you are looking to get a divorce, then it may be a little too late to have that conversation. But we're trying to be proactive. That's why we're
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's really important that there's an establishment of financial independence, even as a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home wife in a couple of different ways. And so what that looks like is making sure that you have access to everything. So even though you may not be contributing in the same way or in an equal way from a financial perspective, your contributions have value. You are an equal partner
Absolutely.
in a partnership. And so that means that you should have access to all of the accounts. You should have access to emails, to bills, even if you don't look at it regularly. Having the opportunity and ability to access that information on your own lessens the dependency that you have
Mhm.
on your partner to get to it. Okay. So that's a like won't cost you any money, may make for some uncomfortable conversations if that hasn't been the case, but that part is important because when you're going through the divorce process, there's a lot of information that you need to know.
Mhm.
And it makes it easier to understand someone's not being forthcoming, someone's not being honest, or money has been moved, right?
Mhm.
You'll
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
easily able to call that out if you have the access. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece from a preparation standpoint is uh, so we share everything, we have access to all accounts, um, everything's all under one name. That's okay. But I think it's super important, again, whether you're a breadwinner or not, but essentially, if you're not in this case, that you have your own account, you have your own credit card that's in your name only, you have a bank account in your name only. Let's be very clear. That's still marital property because you are married, more than likely, unless it was separate, and that's a whole nother conversation. But have stuff in your own name so
Yeah.
that if you need to make some decisions or movement in silence, then you can do that.
That
So
was
I'll
my
pause there.
saving
Like
grace. Yeah.
that.
Because and I mean, you could call me a trad wife, like back in the day. It was a very patriarchal system that I was living in and, homeschooling mom of four, the whole shebang. And so to walk out of that situation, my saving grace was that I had started a podcast as a hobby that had gotten me just like some little sponsors and little things. And I'd also started doing voiceover work as a hobby, but it was something that I was able to draw from. And all that money went directly into my PayPal account. It was just mine. And
Mhm.
he never had access to it, which I know we're like, yes, everything should be shared and like whatever. But thank God I did not like, he wasn't aware of it. I was able to manage that money because he also wasn't a very good manager of our other money. And so for me to have that, like, I mean, I walked away with $1,500 to my name, but it was
Mm,
better than nothing. And so
absolutely.
it was a way for me to say like, "Okay, well, I can feed us. I may not be able to pay for anything else, but I can feed us," So, that point right there of having some sort of account that is your own, I think is so critical for women to have in some way, shape, or form.
And it's not just about some unhappy ending, right? So in
Yeah,
your
yeah,
case, you were thankful that you had it because you needed it because of what happened in your marriage. But sometimes it's just about having autonomy and a sense of
absolutely.
empowerment to
Yeah,
be able to make decisions. So if you are in a happy marriage, it doesn't mean that things are going wrong or that you're
yeah,
looking for things to go wrong because you're establishing some sort of independence within your partnership. It's a very healthy thing to do. And in the event of a divorce, it puts you in the habit, if you're not the primary money manager in your household, it puts you in the habit of managing your own money, tracking,
mhm,
understanding, budgeting on the most basic level and things like that. So it's
yeah,
very little bad that can come out of
yeah.
that.
Well, my best friend who comes on the show all the time, happily married, doing great, but she has started to acquire a little bit more work over the last couple of years. And for her to just be like, I could always do these things before. I could always go get my hair cut or get my nails done or, invest in some purchase that she wanted to make. It's not that she couldn't do that in the past, but now she feels like I have money that's mine that I can invest in those things. I don't feel like I'm taking away from anyone else. There's no guilt involved with that. I'm able to spend the money on the things that I want to spend it on and make those decisions that I don't really have to run by anyone else. And that's a really great freeing thing.
Absolutely 1000% agree with you
Yeah.
on the most fundamental human level, regardless of gender. I would say the same thing
Yeah.
to men. It is a fantastic, amazing feeling just to be able to do what you want to do sometimes with your own money.
Yeah. Yeah, to just have because I think for me, that was one of the biggest things, like, walking away, and I'd had a little bit from doing the podcast, from doing the voiceover work, that I was able to make some little decisions, but there was this critical eye over me the whole time. I had to be very careful about the things that I would invest in, and so for me, walking away to suddenly have all of that power, like, all of that power to make all of the decisions by myself. It's something I've even thought about looking towards the future, possibly getting into another marriage. Like, I don't wanna, like, give that up. Like, I really like being able to make decisions and feel confident about that and not, like, second guessing everything that I do because I'm now the one who manages my money. I think that's a really valuable thing, like you said, for any of us.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
we're aligned there.
Yeah. So what else do you think is really beneficial in that sort of situation? Is there I mean, especially for a divorce that, you may go in I went in very much like, "Let's just make this as easy as possible." And now I'm over $100,000 into a battle to just try to protect my kids. So, it doesn't always go the way that we want it to, but how can we try to set ourselves? Because I've talked to many women over the years who feel that they need to leave, who want to leave, but feel like the whole having to get a legal team is an insurmountable mountain that they can't make that happen. So what kind of advice do you have for women who are feeling stuck or need to somehow go about that in a way that is feasible?
Yeah, there are a couple of different avenues, and it depends on your individual situation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give a bit of a disclaimer. When we have conversations like this, sometimes listeners will walk away and they're like, "Well, that doesn't apply to my situation."
Sure.
Okay, so the disclaimer is, if what we're saying doesn't apply to your particular situation, throw it out.
Yeah.
Take the pieces that apply to your life and figure out a way to utilize them in a way that's beneficial for you, and the other things that you don't relate to or just won't work, great, then that this message is not for you, or this part of the message is not for you. So what I know from my experience and just having basic conversations with people, whether they're a prospective client or a client, is the first thing that most people often do is dial up their attorney. And so one of the things you mentioned is like the big legal team. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's necessary just given the circumstances of your divorce journey. However, what I think a lot of people don't understand about modern day resources is that there are a lot of professionals that can help in the space of divorce that you've never heard of.
Mm.
And so mine is a good example.
Yeah.
As a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst, most people that I talk to are like, "I don't even know what that is."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's completely fair. It's completely fair that they don't know what it is. But a certified divorce financial analyst is intended to focus on the financial impact of your divorce. And so adding a divorce financial analyst to your team can actually help to save money because you're relying on someone that has a particular expertise in a particular area that may, in some cases, depending on where you live, be cheaper than your attorney
Yeah.
and they also have a different expertise. I'm not saying that there isn't overlap, and obviously there are great attorneys who understand financial implications, but I liken it to, your neurosurgeon versus your general surgeon. And so if you're having brain surgery, more than likely you want to go with the neurosurgeon
Yeah.
because while their fundamental knowledge may be the same, one has a deeper level of experience and expertise. And so when you're going through a divorce, you want to build a team, and you don't have to be wealthy to do this. There are a lot of resources, whether you look at not for profits, you look at legal aid clinics, or if money is not necessarily an issue, then again, you can go out and just hire who you want to hire. But there are a lot of professionals like your divorce coach, therapists. Many of us are aware of the value that they can provide. A CDLP is a certified divorce lending professional, so they're focused on like the mortgage aspect, and if you need to refinance your house or if you're looking to buy a new house, and all of these different professionals, experts or contributors who can make your divorce process better and
Mhm.
actually reduce the cost, because you're not relying on the expertise of the most expensive person, usually on your team, to
Yeah.
give you all of the support and information that you need. So that's one of the pieces of guidance that I would provide and recommend to people who are planning or considering or even in the midst of the divorce. If the divorce is not over, it's not too late to assemble the right professionals that will work for your circumstances, to help keep the cost down, but to help you keep your sanity as well.
Yeah. Because I think that's one of the biggest things, at least for me, when I went into it, I was like, I never planned on getting a divorce. I don't know anything about divorce or how this process works or what I need to do. And you're trying to kind of figure it out along the way. Now, 7 years later, I feel like I could be a divorce attorney, but I didn't know in the moment, and I was no naive to so many things. And like you said, I was paying the most expensive person to give me all the information. And that's not their job. Their job is really to deal with the legal aspects, to deal with the court, to deal with those kinds of paperwork. But that's where you're going to rack it up in the phone calls, the emails of asking all those questions. I wish I had had other people in a team because I absolutely would have saved money and time. So, I think that's amazing advice. And a lot of even this far down the road, like a lot of the people that you talked about are things I still haven't heard of. So that's yeah.
And you just touched on something that sometimes I think people lose sight of, especially at the beginning of the process and while they're in it, because they're in the thick of it and it's
Yeah.
already stressful and emotional. But every touch point with your attorney costs you money, unless you have a situation where it's flat fee and you get
Yeah.
everything all in, which is rare, but
Yeah.
it's possible, but it's rare. But especially if your divorce is complex, every email, phone call, outreach to opposing counsel, all of these different levels of engagement that you have, they're not free.
No.
They're not free. So the more organized that you can be, and the better support system that you have, i.e., when your soon to be ex pisses you off, because they likely will during the process, and you need someone to vent or rant to, it's going to be in a very expensive phone call or email if
Yeah.
you're ranting to your attorney. But as far as like documents and all of those things, that's the other guidance that I think is really important, because when people are coming to me, the two most common questions is, where do I start? What should I expect? And so the starting point, outside of identifying just what are your intentions of this process, the tactical things you can do is the preparation.
Mhm.
So when I talked about having access to information, is the collection of documents, is the information gathering. You're going to have to provide tax returns, bank statements, retirement accounts, all of that. And so if you are working, then these are documents that you have access to, and you're pulling and putting in a portal or emailing. It's not uncommon that a document will be missed or misplaced, or they didn't see the email. Well, you have to resend it, right? So
Yeah.
getting yourself prepared for the administrative process is a way also to keep costs down and
Mhm.
to just try to be sane in somewhat of an
Yeah.
insane process.
Yeah, I think that is amazing advice too, because again, I was so naive. I thought you go to an attorney and they do the work. They figure it out. They do the research. And it was upon much trial and error of being like, oh, I knew some of it, like, because I really fled my marriage. It was like "You gotta get out," and I knew for a few days that I was leaving, so I had this cabinet that I started sticking paperwork and whatnot in throughout that couple of days before I left, so that I could just grab it the morning that I was leaving and go, and at least I had, you know, the basic documents that I was going to need to be able to present, but yeah, I had no idea the level and the depth of things. And again, it's like that commitment to the process because, sure, you can pay your attorney to do all that research for you and go after those documents and subpoena things and do all the rest, but you're gonna pay for it. And so the more legwork you can do, which is hard when you're that stressed and emotional and overwhelmed, but the more that you can do of that process, the less you're gonna pay.
100%. No question.
Yeah, yeah, and it sucks really bad.
Oh, no question. No question.
Yeah,
There is very little that's fun and exciting and exhilarating about the
yeah,
divorce process.
yeah. It's
So
if
maybe
anything, maybe when
if
the
it
papers are signed, that's the
right,
exciting part.
I was just going to say that. It's
Yeah,
over. That's the best
yeah,
part. Oh, and actually I'm oversimplifying because even that, the realization that it's over when the papers are signed, like that's a whole nother emotional roller coaster and a literal grieving process for some.
yeah, for some.
Because even if you initiated it, sometimes there's still some grieving associated with it. And yeah, but hopefully once you're through all of that, then you are happier and better off. So that's the better
Absolutely.
part.
Yeah. Yeah, I had more the party, like the celebration. There was no grieving, there was just freedom, but,
Yeah,
that's not everybody's story, and I would hope that that isn't the norm. I would hope that my situation isn't. I know there are a lot of women who are in the situation that I was in, but I hope that that's not the norm, and I hope that most people don't have the kind of experience that I have had and continue to have, and, because it is draining and frustrating every time you see one of those legal bills come through and you're just like, "I don't even wanna be doing this," but
yeah,
I don't have any choice. So you just have to keep walking through it, but you do learn how to get better at it and be very efficient with those emails and calls and maximize that time as much as possible.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, for women who are not walking through a divorce, they are just wanting to be better managers of their money or, start to budget or be better at budgeting or like what kind of general advice do you have for us as women to be managing our money, thinking about the future of our money? Like what do you have for us on that?
The underlying principle that I think that's important for anyone is you have to spend time with your money. So the way that we can be intentional and aggressive almost about dating, whether you're dating your spouse or you're looking to be partnered and you're having dates and there's a lot of planning and you get all dolled up and makeup and everything and you spend a lot of time together, movies, dinner, it's a lot of hours. I think we need to be as intentional with that with our money. And so you can set up once a week, once a month, whatever works for your life, to have a money date night. Now, if you're single, then it's just you,
Yeah.
right? But if you're partnered, then it's the two of you. And the conversations that need to happen when you're partnered or the information that you're looking at, whether you're partnered or not, is generally the same. So, where's my money going? How is my money growing? What are your fixed expenses? What are your flexible expenses, your discretionary expenses, or your freedom funds too. So how much are you saving? Are you making it a priority? And one of the easiest things that we can do, especially in today's modern time, to make savings a priority is to automate. Won't cost you any money to automate. But if you're looking at your savings account, if you're looking at your emergency fund and you're saying, hmm, I don't think I have enough here, then one of the first things that you can do is automate your savings. And so that's making sure that there is a transfer that's happening where you're not touching the money every single month or every 2 weeks, again, depending on your particular situation, but you set it up so that there's a baseline established. So the baseline, most people will say, well, you need to have 3 to 6 months of expenses, or you need to have a year worth of expenses, or sometimes you hear like a month worth. What I tell people is you have to start based on your unique circumstances. So if having 3 months of expenses saved sounds like a huge task and not something you can do, then go less. How much is your deductible on your insurance? Is it 500? Is it 1,000? Have $1,000. And maybe if you don't have credit cards that you have access to with available credit, then again, if something goes wrong, I don't have a credit card as a backup. I need $500 or $1,000 in the bank to cover my deductible. That's a good starting place. Most
Mhm.
people expenses are more than $1,000 a month, right? Or more than $500 a month. But that's where I'm trying to provide the guidance where, again, think about your unique circumstance and go from that. If
Yeah.
500 or 1,000 is very doable or easy for you, then that's when you say, okay, the next milestone is your 3 months. And then the next milestone could be your 6 months. And then after that, it depends on a lot of different circumstances. So, how stable is your cash flow? Are you earning money based on commissions? Are you a business owner? Do you have a steady paycheck? Again, are you partnered? Do you have multiple sources of income, at least two coming into the household, or is it just you? Is it likely that if you were laid off from your job, as an example, or if you decided to change jobs or just decide to quit without another job because you're really unhappy, how your marketable skills, how up to date are they? Do you have a lot of certifications, continuing education? All of those factors go into someone making a determination of how much is enough for them to have saved. And I think sometimes where we fall short, or not even fall short, but get caught up, is that we think about financial guidance and advice as being black and white, and it is not black and white.
Mhm.
It is based on your individual circumstances. So, what may be right for your best friend or what may be right for your sister is not necessarily the best thing for you. And it's okay to take those individual circumstances into account. I said a lot there. I'm sorry. It's
No.
something I'm passionate about.
Yeah, no, I think that is great and so helpful because, like you were saying, we get all this black and white advice. This is how much you need, but it's really easy, especially I'm a single mom. I'm like hustling to just try to cover our bills every month. Like it can be really overwhelming to be like, oh, sure, got it. I'm gonna have 6 months in the bank. Like that's at that point, it's like, well, I'm not even gonna try because we're just trying to get by from month to month. Like that's a pipe dream. So when you can scale it back and make it more personalized to what is actually approachable for you in your real life circumstances, I think then you can actually start to make progress. Otherwise, it just feels too overwhelming and like too much.
It does. It does. And the other thing when it comes to looking at not just where your money is going, so that's the budgeting piece, and you can decide if a spreadsheet works best for you, a Google sheet works best for you, or if you want to use an actual budgeting tool. There's so many
Yeah.
tools out there that it's hard in this day and age to say, oh, I can't figure out a way to manage your money, because
Yeah.
they're free resources, they're paid resources. So you might have to do a little digging, and that's some of the things that I've helped clients with, to say, let's just figure out what the right tool is for you, because it's not one size fits all,
Mhm.
but there are a lot of tools out there. So let's just pick one. And if
Yeah.
you don't like that tool, then we can throw it away. We can start over with a different one. But outside of watching where your money is going, it's how is it growing? And when I was younger, my parents didn't have conversations with me about my net worth and how to determine how much I have in retirement accounts and if that's enough. Or we definitely didn't have conversations about investing when I was younger. So it's just get a job and be able to pay your bills. That was the main conversation. And so in today's world, I feel like we progressed in that we should be having conversations not just about savings and debt and credit cards, because it's always a hot topic too, and managing all of that, which is very real, but we do want to pay attention to the progress that we're making. So when
Mhm.
we were in school, you could look at your GPA and your grades and say, okay, I'm doing okay, or I'm not.
Yeah.
I really need to pass this class or I'm going to be in trouble. But our net worth to me as an adult is like our GPA. And so
Mhm.
there should be some progress and growth in your net worth year over year. And taking the time when I work with clients, I'm like, hey, let's do what we call a personal financial statement. And it just lists out, it's your essentially your balance sheet, but it's listing out your assets. How much do you actually own? And then what do you owe? What are your liabilities? And so then we start with the number to say your net worth is whatever it is. Sometimes it's negative for people. Okay, we know what it is.
Yeah.
And then how do we continue to make progress so that we see that number growing? So it goes from negative to positive, or your net worth goes from 50,000 to 75,000. So it's just about the little steps. And I think with money, sometimes we're looking for some massive change overnight and the big hits. And it's really just about the small progress steps that you can make.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Do you have any specific tools that you favor over others? Like you were saying, everybody has a different personality, everybody has different needs, but are there certain tools that you kind of come back to time and time again?
So I feel like I'm old when I say this because I genuinely just love Excel.
Yeah.
I, I use Excel, I don't know how many times a day. And so whether it's professionally or personally, I still use Excel it's free
Yeah.
to track my money. I can track my net worth. I can track for budgeting purposes, goals, looking year over year comparison. I can do all of that in Excel. So that's my preferred method.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's my preferred method, quite
Okay.
honestly.
Okay. And do you have like obviously you've customized it over the years and you've like
Yeah,
made it all
yeah.
work for you, but do you if somebody is like, "Okay, I'll try that." Do you have like directions you would point them to setting that up for themselves?
Yeah, so we have a template actually that we generally provide, and you don't even have to be a client in order to get that from us. But we have templates that we provide. But then I also can direct people to other resources where here are a couple of different websites where you can use a Google template because not everyone has Microsoft products, right? So you can use a Google template as an example, or you can use an Excel template, or they're like budgeting softwares and things like that. So I will walk through. I have a guide that compares different softwares and tools to say, this is how much this one will cost you. Here are the pros and cons of that. So those are some of the things that I provide to say, here are your options. And then we can narrow it down from there. But because the options can be so vast,
Mhm.
I do streamline it
Yeah.
and narrow it down so you don't have so many to choose from. Sure.
Yeah. It can be really overwhelming because I know like every time I start looking at financial things or whatever, my Instagram algorithm gets skewed and then every other ad is like a different budgeting software or whatever and it's like, well, they all look like they're the best one. So how am I supposed to figure out what to use? Yeah.
Yeah, some common ones are YNAB, so that's why you need a budget. You've heard of that. There's Pocket Money, there is Empower, and different tools do different things. So that's why it's hard to say, oh, this is the
Yeah.
best one,
Yeah.
because different people need certain aspects or tools or certain tracking mechanisms. And I haven't found one that I would say can fit every single person. And that's why
Yeah.
there's so many out there.
Yeah. I think that's important to, just like we're talking about in every other aspect of your finances, it's personal, you have to customize it, it has to work with your personality and ultimately what you will actually use.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the most important thing. So
Yeah.
over the years, I've tried many different tools. Some just again to provide clients with options and to be aware of what I'm sending someone to, but also for myself as technology continues to get better and better, it's like, oh, let me stop using Excel and try XYZ tool. And I always go back to Excel because that's what I end up using the most. So I think your
Yeah.
point is spot on. Only lean into the things that you like enough to use. If it's
Yeah.
pretty, but functionally you don't understand it and it
Yeah.
doesn't work for you, then that's probably not the best tool for you.
Yeah. And I think so I do this with planning stuff all the time because when I'm coaching women on productivity and trying to figure out what planning method works best for them and like everybody has a different personality and if you're not going to use it, then it's not going to work. And that's one of the things we talk about like if you just need a spreadsheet or you just need to work with Google Calendar or you want the pretty planner that you put the stickers all over or whatever like whatever you're going to use. That's the biggest hurdle that we need to get over.
It really is. And it should allow you to not only, like I said, look thinking about like your cash flow position, your net worth, but figure out where you have frivolous spending,
Yeah.
where you have opportunities to reduce some cost. And in the business world, you find that business owners spend a lot of time doing like annual reviews with their CFO or when they do their tax planning and strategies, or very wealthy people. I used to work for a family office. And so those activities can be done for the everyday person. We don't
Mhm.
talk about them enough. We don't encourage that type of thing. And a lot of it just has to do with our families don't know what they don't know. And
Yeah.
so it's not just a habit that has been built up, but we can decide that this is a habit and a behavior that we want to do. And so do a 360 review once a year. Just take a really deep dive and say, I've been paying for Audible every single month all this year, and I have 7 credits, left over.
Yeah.
Maybe I just pause it. Maybe
Yeah.
I pause it for now, or
Yeah.
you cancel it. And I think sometimes we let things continue to be charged because it's $5 here, it's $16 there. I'm not the finance person that says don't buy the latte. I'm a latte girl, so I buy all
Yeah.
the lattes. However, I am the person that says pay attention to things that you're not getting the best use of right now.
Yeah.
And if you're not utilizing services that you're paying for, it's okay to cancel them and get them back when you're going to actually use them.
Yeah. I think of this so much even just with streaming services because we keep these streaming services all the time, even when there aren't things that we're wanting to watch. And we have 47 different streaming services and we're not utilizing them. And like, a lot of times also for me, from what I found, like, I'll go in and when you try to cancel, then they're like, "Oh, we'll give it to you for $2." And it's like, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna every other month, I'm gonna come back and say I'm gonna cancel, and you're gonna give it to me for $2." But it just takes you actually getting in there and taking the time to do that, and I think being aware of your subscriptions, especially because we are in this sneaky subscription society now where they are like everywhere and you forget how many you have and when they're coming out. And I have so much respect for the companies who like send you the text message 3 days before, like, hey, this is coming. Like, I can kiss you because most of you are like trying to get in on the back end, knowing I'm going to forget. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I agree with you. I love them too. Sometimes I have more loyalty because at
Yes.
least you're being open. You're
Yes.
being a good service provider to me because
Yes.
instead of just taking my money, you're saying, "Hey, you have an opportunity to remain a customer, and if you don't want to, that's okay." And going back
Or
to
they
modern
offer you
research.
that skip, like skip a month.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, exactly. And I don't think people use that enough, the pausing and the skipping of services. Even with the modern resources that we have, there are tools that if you don't want to do the tracking, it will track your subscriptions for you,
Yeah.
especially with the advancements in AI. You have tools that'll say, hey, you have Netflix, but you haven't watched Netflix in 6 months,
Yeah.
or you have Apple TV and you haven't watched that. So if you don't have the capacity to manage it on your own, then engage the tools that will help you do
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we have to wrap up this interview so I can go pause some subscriptions.
that.
Now they're all playing through my head. What do I need to pause right now? Oh, but before we wrap up, I would love to just get into like our ending segment of things. This has been so great, and I feel like there's so much for us to mull over. I hope that a lot of people will go to the show notes and pursue you and have you help them be able to figure out a lot of this stuff because clearly you have so much knowledge in this area. But as we're wrapping up, what does a typical day, if there is a typical day, look like for you?
Yeah, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
No 2 days are ever like between the work that I do, trying to take care of myself and work out, drink enough water, take meetings, have discussions like this.
Yeah.
And I have a 19-year-old son, so that also makes it very interesting.
Yeah, I
They're
have an
really,
18-year-old. There.
so we're
Yep.
in the same boat. You
Yep.
understand. No 2 days are alike, but
Yeah.
consistently, I would say it's a lot of work for me. I try to get in movement as much as possible. So whether it's treadmill, I'm really loving P-Volve right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
So that's a
Okay.
online workout tool that I use, and I love food. So at least one of my meals has to be really good. Good doesn't mean healthy. It just has to be
Yeah.
good.
You just have to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So that's about it as far as what's consistent.
Okay. Well, what is some little thing that you do in your life to live well anyway? In those like taking care of yourself or what is just one little thing that helps you feel like you're doing that?
Pilates.
Okay.
I've done Pilates for I don't even know how long. It has to be over 7 years at this point, 7 or 8 years. Once a week, consistently. The only time I've missed over that time span has been because I've been traveling or the instructor has been traveling.
Oh, okay.
But I do reformer Pilates, and there's never been a time where I left class and I was thinking, oh, I wish I had stayed home. It may be
Yeah.
hard to get up out of the bed to make it there,
Yeah.
but it's the little thing that I do that gives me um, a really good feeling every time that I leave, and I haven't given it up yet.
Oh, I love it. That's a really good one. I only have done like, well, I've done some like bar Pilates classes mixed, but I haven't tried the reformer. But that it looks really interesting and really good.
And it's great. I did bar years ago, and I couldn't walk for 2 days, after. It's
Yeah.
so intense, and
Yeah.
so I did it again recently, and, I was okay, and I think it was because of Pilates.
Yeah, probably. The thing that made the difference for me with bar because I went to the class like 5 years ago and almost died. Like, I felt like I was gonna throw up when I came out. I was like, that was the most awful thing. The lady was yelling at me on the microphone, like, calling me out in the class. I'm like, "I've had 4 babies, like, leave me alone. I'm doing my best." But I went to a class that the median age was over 60. And so I really feel like that has helped out with being able to keep up.
I would have to agree with you
Yeah, yeah.
because I went to one, and I think they were all, like, 18,
Oh,
19. So
yeah. Yeah. Like, "No, I'm gonna graduate myself to the light, the elderly bar class.
Mhm.
I can
That's
keep
the
up with that." Yeah.
that's the trick.
Yeah. Okay, are you ready for my stock questions?
I think so.
Okay, they're easy, they're fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Alright, candles or essential oil diffuser?
Candles
Okay, cloth
all
nap
day.
yeah, all day. Cloth napkins or paper?
Cloth are really pretty and dainty, not functional. Paper.
No. Yeah, I totally feel you on that one. Okay, city or country?
Oh, city.
Alright. Where do you live?
So I'm right outside of Chicago, born and
Okay.
raised, actually, and I've been to many, many, many cities, but Chicago is by far
The
one of my
one.
favorite cities. Yeah,
Alright. Paper or digital?
digital.
Yeah, and, like, Excel digital. Like
Yes, Excel
basic digital.
digital.
Yeah.
If it's writing, then it's paper, but if it's
Yeah.
numbers, it's digital.
Got it. Okay, shopping. Would you rather do it online or in the store?
In the store.
Okay.
I'm pre-menopausal, I think.
Yep. I get it.
And my body is different. And so
Yeah.
it's better to try on the clothes in the store.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on because I saw a picture from like 3 years ago, when they just pop up on your phone. And I was like, wait a minute. This was like 3 years ago? Like, what happened? Like, I don't even understand. Like, yeah, that perimenopause is no joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
Mhm.
whatever time you're making dinner and you need a mental break. Do you listen to music or podcast?
That's a good one. Usually music.
Okay.
Just because I don't think when I'm
Yeah.
listening, don't think is an exaggeration, but I don't have to think as much. When
Yeah.
I'm listening to a podcast, I am actively trying to take in the information
Hmm.
and remember, especially when they're really good points. And so my attention is diverted between whatever I'm doing, cooking in your example. So music, because I can zone
Okay.
out.
Yeah. And what would be some of the music you would listen to?
I'm an R&B girl,
Okay.
90s, early
Yeah.
2000s R&B, so I listen to the same artists over and over
Yeah.
again. Brandy, Monica, Usher,
I
like,
love it.
that's yeah,
Yeah.
Beyonce, that's pretty much what I listen to. I like a little bit of everything, but that's what I listen to the
That's
most.
like the stuff you come back to over and over again.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the songs I know by heart, so
Yeah. Okay. Chocolate, milk or dark?
Milk.
Okay.
Dark is better for you, I
Yes.
recognize that, but I'm a milk chocolate
Yeah.
girl.
You gotta go with what you love. All right.
Mhm.
Sports or no sports?
Sports.
Okay.
Yeah, my son played in various sports between 5 and 17. And so while I was not a sports fan before I had him,
Yeah.
I became a sports fan by force.
Yeah.
And I love a good football game. Football is probably my favorite. That's what he played the longest. But I love going to college football games,
Hmm.
a couple, some NFL teams, not the Bears, but but yeah, definitely sports.
All right. Live broadcasting, would you rather broadcast or watch?
Watch.
Okay. What is your favorite movie?
Love Jones.
Okay.
Love Jones is a romantic comedy from mid 90s, maybe. I feel like I'm dating myself here, but I've seen the movie about 20, 25 times. I quote the movie often.
Those are the ones that
It's
stick with you when
yeah,
you quote them. Yeah.
and it has not been remade, and I hope they never do.
Yeah. That an amen to a lot of those. I'm like, just leave them where they are. They're perfect
Just
as they
leave
are.
it.
Yeah.
Just leave it. Like, imagine someone remaking How to Lose a Guy in 10 days.
Right.
Like,
It just,
it's
yeah.
perfect just the
Yeah.
way it is.
Yeah. And I don't care how much my kids think they're dated when they watch them. Or the one of them that my girls have fallen in love with is 10 Things I Hate About You. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And yes, it's a remake of Shakespeare, whatever. Like, but it is a standalone, like,
Yes,
so fun film. Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And final question. If you were to put yourself on the crunchiness spectrum, where 0 is not crunchy at all, and 10 is like singing Kumbaya by the fire with your legs unshaven, where would you be on the spectrum?
In the middle?
Okay.
Yeah,
That is a very
prob-
respectful answer.
probably in the middle.
Okay. We're gonna take our paper napkins, but also like have certain things that we're crunchier about. I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Nikki. I feel like you had so many little gems of wisdom that I hope anybody listening to this podcast episode can walk away with and feel like are really applicable to their everyday life. So, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to chat with you and a very fun conversation. So I
Good.
love fun conversations.
Yes. They're more fun to listen to too. That's my job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks.